So you may already be aware of RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing as he seeks to be appointed Secretary of Health and Human Services, which means essentially if he is confirmed, he would be in charge of the health of the country, so to speak. And the question is, what are his chances? The thing with his chart is that it's a bit of an odd situation. There is a birth time that is quoted, but it's a little mysterious and not entirely trustworthy. On the other hand, when I look at the chart it produces, it does have an accurate feel in that, for example, Leo rising seems to be a very suitable rising sign for this guy. His demeanor, his physical appearance, and when you notice that he's trying to become Secretary of Health, and it's also true that he's had a long-term interest in matters of health. And you see this by way of multiple Capricorn planets opposite the moon in Cancer, cutting across the health houses of that early Leo rising chart, which makes a lot of sense. Indeed, there's another factor in there that is fascinating, in that he also is born in the generation of Pluto and Leo people in the 20th century, and his Pluto is doing an exact 150-degree aspect. It's known as the inconjunct or quincunx to his natal Venus, and that's a health and death aspect. You find it by looking at Aries as the primary sign of self and noticing that it points to Virgo and Scorpio in 150-degree angles, and that's why that particular angle works in that way. But the thing is, for him, it's spooky because that 150 to his Venus in its connection to Taurus always has some connection to the throat area, and he has had a long-term condition that affects his vocal cords and gives him that really raspy voice. And there you have a major angle between a planet like Pluto, which can literally destroy things at times, and the fact that it's in a health angle explains it really well. So let's posit that the chart has a good chance of being accurate. What are his chances of being confirmed? And of course we know that he's on the hot seat. He's being confronted with all kinds of things that he has said, that he has bagged, hypocrisies. I mean, the list is endless. And full disclosure, I would prefer that he not be confirmed, because I don't trust this guy for multiple reasons. I'm not saying he doesn't have some good ideas, but in my opinion, the entire package is pretty disturbing, and I'm hoping that he won't be confirmed. However, when I look at the chart, he does have some pretty good connections. For example, in contrast to the orange baboon that nominated him for this, the Saturn cycle in Pisces is a lot more favorable for RFK, because instead of doing harsh squares to planets, it's providing a lot of support by way of sextile in his chart at the moment. So that's one very positive alignment. The other is that he is on a Jupiter return. Jupiter has, or rather orbits in 12-year cycles, and Jupiter's in Gemini, which is where his natal Jupiter is, and you often see this when a person is expanding in some direction. So the feel of the planets in the chart, the transiting planets, is actually pretty good, and this would point to the possibility that he would be confirmed. If I'm looking for the thing that might stop him, and this is what I'm hoping does indeed happen, and I'm not sure that this is enough, but it might be enough. And it's the fact that because the chart has very early Leo rising, it means 2 degrees or so Leo rises, 2 degrees Aquarius sets. This means the transiting Pluto is right there on the horizon point, the descendant, the setting part of the chart. And given that the natal Pluto is doing that 150, it is possible that this kind of proximity could deny him his objective. For that, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I will admit that there is enough there to get him through. And so if it is the case that he gets through, then you wonder, well, how might he do? How might it work? And there's where, if you're looking ahead, because his Capricorn energy is later in the sign, and when you're looking for a person to find himself in trouble, being confronted, running into difficulties that can result in loss of reputation all the way to loss of job, etc., Saturn is the king in terms of that, bringing you to accountability. And that comes later, and he does have his moon in the middle of Cancer. So all of this I'm pointing to is that Saturn will be going into Aries, which means it's going to square Capricorn and Cancer. But it doesn't get to his moon degrees, which are the earliest in that cardinality, Capricorn Cancer. It doesn't get there until 2026, and really not until 27. In other words, if this guy gets in, and if he manages to continue, which the odds become pretty good if he does get in, then it's in the second half of the Trump administration that he would be facing the most pressure, because by then you have Saturn first squaring the moon and then squaring his planets. Of course, that's a long way away, and in the meantime, first level, let's hope he doesn't get confirmed, and failing that, let's hope and pray that he doesn't try to implement some of his wackiest ideas, because they are really wacky and could turn out to be potentially very, very dangerous. I've seen in some of the charts, like the inauguration chart, for example, you remember I was pointing to a lot of health angles, and it's one thing to say, well, perhaps the presidential figure runs into health issues. I mean, certainly that's in the Orange Menace chart, no question. But it could also more broadly point to the country dealing with health patterns as well, which wouldn't be a lot of fun. This happened, for example, when you look at the 2017 inauguration chart, you could see there were health patterns, and then we got a pandemic, and now we know that there is the bird flu, and this guy has some really strange positions on vaccines, and my hope is that public pressure will prevent him from trying to implement his worst impulses, his worst ideas. But on that, time will tell, and of course the first part of this will be, does he even get confirmed at all? And there's what I say again, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the proximity of the Pluto denies the positive, helpful aspects in the chart at this time.